Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. For the message we're about to receive, we give thanks, O Lord. Bless our academy and our families, favor the aspirations of our nation, and protect the men and women in uniform who guard our freedom.
Eric, seats!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Cadet Staff Sergeant James King.
Good morning, Riverside. It is my great pleasure and honor to introduce our Norman P. Blake family distinguished speaker, Mr. Kevin Corke. Mr. Corke currently serves as a White House correspondent for Fox News Channel. He has held this post since 2014. Prior to joining Fox News, Mr. Corke spent 4 years as a member of the White House Press Corps for NBC News while covering the George W. Bush administration. His journalism experience in Washington includes reporting from the Pentagon, the Supreme Court of the United States, Capitol Hill, and the United States State Department. However, his work has taken him outside the Beltway and indeed around the globe, sometimes aboard Air Force One. He has reported from numerous continents covering issues ranging from politics and international policy to trade and terrorism. In July 2018, Mr. Corke contributed to Fox News Channel's special live coverage surrounding President Trump's trip to Europe, including in Brussels, Belgium, United Kingdom, Helsinki, Finland, and Glasgow, Scotland. Most recently, in February of this year, he traveled to Vietnam to cover the Trump-Kim summit. You may have also seen his work on The Today Show, NBC Nightly News, or on MSNBC, where he anchored that network's Super Tuesday political coverage. But even if these programs and networks are not familiar to you, many of the stories he covered surely are. As a journalist, Mr. Corke has covered a variety of stories, including the Virginia Tech tragedy, the last space shuttle flight, major hurricanes, and nearly every major American sporting event as a host on ESPN's SportsCenter. Mr. Corke is a graduate of Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government, where he earned a Littauer Fellow citation for academic excellence, leadership, and a commitment to work in the public interest. Coincidentally, these are 3 characteristics that the Academy seeks to instill in each of us. In addition, Mr. Corke holds both a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Colorado, Boulder. Now, I would like to add a personal note. I cannot be more grateful to God for bringing Mr. Corke into my life through a chance meeting outside of Union Station in D.C. As I stood there one hot day in July 27, waiting to rent a bike for a city tour, Mr. Corke complimented my dad on a ball cap he was wearing and instantly connected with my family. We then launched into introductions and full-blown conversations about our shared faith in our Heavenly Father. He turned to me and immediately gave me academic advice and ended our meeting with a firm handshake and a promise that nothing in life happens by chance, including our meeting that very day. It was shortly after this meeting that I began to really think about my future and yearn to be as successful as him. I quickly decided to make a big change in my life and to attend this great academy. I can't thank him enough for being such a great influence on me, from encouraging me to know the books of the Bible, to studying the current events in the Middle East, to exploring the possibility of becoming an astronaut. Thank you, Mr. Corke. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kevin Corke.
Aw, shucks. You know, I'm not a I'm not your dad, but boy, I'm so proud of you right now. That is just crazy. It is such an absolute thrill to be here. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I knew the second that my family, the Miller family, invited me here, I said I would come no matter what. Risa, Craig, Lex, Jimmy, Red, thank you. Thank you. For those of you who don't know, and thank you for that warm introduction, that's very kind of you. I'm the 9th of 10 kids in my family, which means I had to wait to ride in the front seat of the car, I had to wait to pick the cereal, and I never got new clothes. So you guys count yourselves lucky, you don't have to worry about that. But in coming here today, I wanted to come for a couple reasons. First of all, I wanted to come because it's important to me to take part in the opportunity to address America's future leaders. And I really believe that in this very room, at this very moment, are some of America's finest leaders of today and tomorrow. And I want you to know that. I don't know who, and I don't know how many, but I guarantee you, there's some of the great leaders of our nation right here today, because that's the foundation of what we're about here at Riverside. I wanted to come also today because I wanted to share a story of a very dear friend. I think you'll relate to this story. As James mentioned, I worked at ESPN for several years. I anchored SportsCenter and also did play-by-play. And I wanted to make sure that I shared just a bit of that experience with you through the story of a very dear friend. Her name is Amy Van Dyken. If you're a swimmer, you probably have heard of her. She was born in February of 1973 in Denver, Colorado. And if you hear a Colorado theme in this story, it's because I am also a Colorado kid. I grew up out there. Amy was a self-described gangly, giggly girl who actually suffered from very severe asthma growing up. So severe, in fact, that she would rarely go out and even play. Her parents would keep her inside. She had terrible allergies, and it just made it very difficult. Well, at one point in her life, it was suggested to Amy that she consider swimming as a way to build up her endurance and obviously make her healthier. So she began to swim just a bit. Not much, but just a little. And something really interesting happened. Turns out she was pretty good. I mentioned that she was a gangly, giggly girl, self-described. Gangly for sure. She was 6 feet tall in the 8th grade. She said she didn't grow another inch after that, but it didn't matter because Amy sure could swim. Swim so well, in fact, she made it all the way to the Olympic Games. In fact, my friend Amy is a 6-time Olympic gold medal winner. Pretty impressive for a kid that grew up not too far from me. And by the way, I should mention this. She has a smile like a kid that just got a brand new Xbox on Christmas. I mean, she lights up the room. It's like she beat 20 other people at Fortnite. I mean, this lady comes in and she really sets the room ablaze. You know what's fun about that? Is she's really relished her role as an ambassador for the sport of swimming and for the Olympic movement in general. And she takes that energy and that enthusiasm all over the world, telling the American story. Well, along the way to forever, something very interesting happened to Amy. I want to take you to June 2014, June 6th to be exact. She was out with her husband and some friends having a pretty good time. If you're from Georgia, and I know that some of you are, many of the faculty members are from the great state of Georgia, you know all about ATVs. They can be an absolute blast to get out there in the backcountry and kind of whip around. Well, Amy's an athlete and decided to get out there on an ATV with her friends and her family, including her husband. And unfortunately, she had an accident. Tipped over, spilled over on her. In the course of that accident, it was so bad that the injuries nearly cost her her heart. Unfortunately, the injury did cost her her ability to walk. She was paralyzed from the waist down. This after a life of championship swimming, and traveling the globe and being independent. But by the grace of God, she survived. People didn't think she'd make it, but she did. A triumph of fate and the human spirit. Alas, she'd never be the same. Nope. No more swim meets, no more Olympic days, no more ATVs. Sadly, at least so far, no more walking. Paralyzed from the waist down. After all that. Still, her courage and determination saw her through the darkness like a torch. Her desire to walk again burned brightly. And with help, she's taken a few steps, literally and figuratively. Amy, you see, is a champion. She always was a champion. She didn't know it when it was recommended that she take up swimming. But she had championship stuff inside. She had a real medal to compete. A champion through and through. Fighting for those whose fate may otherwise have consumed them. Nope, she didn't stop. Kept fighting. She's a fighter, after all. But how, you ask? How in the world does she stay positive after all that? How do you do it? You're on top of the world. Accident, now you're bound to a wheelchair. Well, she did so with fight, with faith, and with family. Did you know that she's not the only, by the way, famous Coloradoan in her family? It's true. Nope, my friend Amy is part of a family with another person who actually played in the National Football League for 7 different teams, won 2 Super Bowls and a national championship in college. How's your family measuring up to that, huh? That's pretty impressive. She has an All-Pro in her family, an NFL All-Pro. You could argue she's an All-Pro herself. And in her family, they've been All-Pro on the field and indeed off. 13 years into Amy's marriage to this All-Pro. His name's Tom. We went to college together. Her family faced the challenge of a lifetime. Tom's beautiful bride was hurt in that 13th year of marriage. Devastating, that ATV accident. Amy, the star of the family, the belle of the proverbial ball, had been really hurt. And not just physically, emotionally. It was a tough time. But you know what? She needed help bathing. She needed help getting dressed. Needed help getting in and out of bed. Needed help getting in that wheelchair. The heart of a champion. Her husband, too. You see, Tom was the guy who was by her side through it all. This is a guy, by the way, who, despite his great career, had been cast aside by 7 NFL teams. Tough kid. Hung in there. Duty, honor, and family. Tom never shirked from his opportunity to love his wife, to help her through. Truth is, he could have tucked tail and ran and said, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for the star athlete. Not Tom. He didn't run. He wouldn't run. He couldn't run. because it meant that much to him. And then there's Amy. For years, she has suffered through living with poor Tom, because Tom's a mess. Tom's snoring, his practical jokes, his impish sense of humor. A perfect fit now, this perfect pair. Bound together by fate, thrust through the crucible, and there they stand. Now more than ever, a portrait of courage, of honor, of determination. Something our world could use a lot more of these days. You could argue now more than ever. I wanted to come today because I have a simple message in sharing the stories of my friends Amy and Tom. Life isn't perfect, guys. It's not neat and tidy. Sometimes you get yelled at. Sometimes life throws you a tough break. But you know what? When it really happens and it comes at you tough, I'm going to ask you to do one thing. I want you to be like Amy. I want you to be like Tom. Never shirk, never tuck tail and run. Stand tall, be accountable, be honorable, stay committed, and stay courageous. That's the Riverside way. I promise you, if you do that, and if I could add, pray earnestly, you'll be all right. In fact, you'll be better than all right. You'll be great. And that's why I wanted to come, to tell you that you're doing great things. These are the good times. And even when it gets tough, don't ever forget, if you stay courageous, stay committed, duty-bound, you'll be all right. You'll never be sorry. You'll never regret. I promise. Because above all, you'll be exactly what Riverside trained you to be. Faithful, honorable, leaders at home, and at school, and abroad. Today, tomorrow, forever. Well done, Riverside. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. I wouldn't miss it. And on behalf of all those who are here because of you, and on behalf of those who are here for you, we say well done. And thank you for having me. My time is up, as my favorite pastor likes to say, and I thank you for yours. I believe I can do Q&A at this point, gents. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Q&A. Who's got a question? Let me make sure this is on here. Hold on. Here we go. Q&A. Who's got a question? Just 1, 2. There we go.
So I got a question for you.
Question right here.
Yes, sir. Andrew Pedri, Social Studies and Foreign Languages. Thank you for speaking. It was an excellent speech.
Thank you.
My question has to do with the news industry. That's all right.
By all means.
I think we understand that the availability of information and the economic pressures on the news industry have encouraged news organizations to increasingly polarize their presentation of information. How do we, as citizens and consumers of news, help to move us back towards a more neutral news industry?
That's a terrific question. The idea is, in a polarized news environment, how can we as consumers encourage a move back to the, for lack of a better description, moderate middle?
Yes, sir.
Or the Joe Friday School of News, just the facts, man. Those of us who are old enough to get that reference, thank you for nodding, I appreciate that. To me, that's like toothpaste out of the tube. So here's what I would propose. Rather than hope or even try to encourage news organizations to go back to the tradition, which I hold dear to, as individuals and collectively, arm yourself. The responsibility has shifted greatly with the explosion of information. It used to be you had 3 channels, and you got your news sort of spoon-fed to you. Now, whether it's this device, your laptop, your iPad, you have access. So I would volley back and say this: arm yourselves with information, be responsible for your own consumption, and know this: skepticism is not a bad thing. Be skeptical and dig and dig. There will be those, I promise you, that will be misled, but not you if you pay attention. Great question. Thank you for that. Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
It's Cadet Page from Bible Company, and I was wondering, did you ever meet the president, and which one?
Did I ever meet the president?
Yes, sir.
I've covered 3 administrations. I've covered the Bush administration, the Obama administration, and now the Trump administration. And boy, are they different.
Thanks, sir.
I've met all 3. I'll say President Bush is a warm, affable, sort of a jokester. He's a kidder. He's very self-effacing and friendly, down-home guy. President Obama, more formal, a little bit careful with the press, but again, a warm person once you get past the sort of barriers that are created in coverage. I found his wife to be lovely in particular. And President Trump is about as straight a shooter as you'll get. When he walks to the back of Air Force One, there is no guarded President Trump. You know how some politicians, there's this veil that they sort of keep in front, they become politicians, and then when the cameras go off, they relax? President Trump is always just, that is, what you see is what you get. And so it's been an interesting experience, I can promise you that.
Sir, we have a question in the, sir, up in the balcony up here.
Balcony, great. Hello.
Sir, Ilana Gossi from Hotel. What's Tom's last name?
Which Tom are you speaking? Oh, Tom Ruin.
Tom what?
Yeah, Ruin. R-O-U-E-N. Tom Ruin.
Does he still play?
Tom does not currently play, but he does sports radio. He's in commercials, and he's a dutiful, disciplined husband. And he is honestly a real practical joker. If I went to Tom's house right now and he said, "Would you like something to drink?" I'd be like, "Sure, bring me a bottle of water." He'd bring out something that wasn't water. And probably something a lot stronger than that. The adults in the room know what I'm saying.
Thank you, sir.
He's a great guy.
Mr. Corke, another question from the floor.
Question from the floor, go ahead. Eyes front.
How are you doing, sir? My name is James Blaine. I'm from Alpha Company, and my question is, what made you decide on Fox News out of all the other news outlets that you could be a part of?
The money. Now that was meant to be a joke, although it's sort of serious. For me, the reason I chose the job that I did was it was the opportunity that it did pay the most, but it also gave me a chance to get back to my roots of covering the White House. Because I covered the White House previously, and then went to local news to be a main anchor. Good evening, I'm Kevin Corke, that sort of thing. And then when this opportunity presented itself, and it actually took about a year. The first conversation was in January. I had another in June. I got my first meeting, I think, in October, another in November, and then the offer in December. So it took a long time, a long courtship, relatively speaking, and it was the right fit. But you can use the other line, that was funny. Yes, next question. Going once.
Of course, sir.
Question down here in the front.
Yes, sir. Andy Jobson, English department, and Fort Collins, born and boy myself.
Attaboy, Andy. My brother went to Fort Fun.
You've got a lot of educational experience, master's, bachelor's, Kennedy School of Government, obviously a lot of world experience. What are some books or some authors that you would say a young man ought to read to kind of get ready for the world today?
Boy, that's a terrific question. I am actually reading a couple of books right now. One is called 1L. It's about the first year in law school, and the reason it was recommended to me was because it's about the crucible for these young students. They think they're hot stuff. They go to Cambridge to law school, and they learn that you're not as smart as you think you are, and you don't have all the answers. And the reason that book was recommended for me and for a lot of my colleagues was because I think we get the idea that because I've been to 41 countries, I've covered kings and prime ministers and presidents, but you don't have all the answers. And so for me, that book really meant a lot. I'm also reading another book. I'm going to pop this one up here. I've got the Woodward book, Fear, which I found fascinating, but this is just like what's in my personal library. But if I were going to recommend to young people, I like Good to Great, the Kramer book. Because I think it's easy to think that you're pretty hot stuff. You guys are sharp, you're squared away, you're in shape, but you could be better. And it's okay to know that you can be better. So that might be my recommendation. I'll think about that and maybe think of something that's more appropriate for, what do you guys, 14 to 18 roughly, give or take? Let me think about that. By the way, if you are on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, I'm just Kevin Corke. My email is really easy. It's kevin.corke@foxnews.com. If you write me, I'll write you back. And I'll think about your question, Andy, and I'll post a couple recommendations. Thanks for that. You didn't go to CSU, though, did you?
No.
You got out.
My parents left when I was 4.
I'll tell you this, Fort Collins is unbelievable right now. It's incredible. Next question.
Sir, I have a question. My name is Preston Levine of Foxtrot Company. I was wondering what's the largest conflict that you've gone through in your career and what you learned from it?
Boy, what an excellent question. The greatest conflicts I've gone through in my career? Did you mean personally or professionally? During my time at NBC, there's always tension when you cover an administration. That's just the nature of it. The biggest conflict for me was trying to navigate the personal relationships that you develop while at the same time being sharp in your reporting, which may be unfavorable, which may be harsh. And that's never easy because I have a responsibility to my job to tell people what's happening, to help them understand the context or deconstruct what's happening for viewers who are not sort of awash in news all day. At the same time, I'm a human being. I'm working with these administrations. You develop relationships, and that can be very difficult. Probably the biggest conflict I think I've had is during the Bush administration covering the financial crisis. You really are pulling for our country. You want our country to do well. At the same time, you have to hold the people in power accountable for poor decisions, for mistakes, or for bad policy. It's probably the biggest one I can think of. Good question.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My name is Karen Nicholson from Alpha Company, and my question is, when did you first become a correspondent for the White House?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. My first year as a correspondent was in 2004 for NBC, and I moved to the White House in 2005 to cover the Bush administration. I did his second term in office, and then I did the Obama second term in office with that space in between I told you about, being a main anchor. And then I've been covering the Trump administration. And I'll tell you this, it's never a dull moment. Let me get another faculty question. Come on, guys. Let's go. Sir.
Elijah Merritt, English Department. You know more than most of us how easy it is to become flooded. Thank you. You know more than most of us how easy it is to become flooded with information, and the news never stops coming. And you mentioned Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the whole 9 yards. Do you have any advice or strategies for turning it off? When is it healthy to stop consuming as much media as we can and let the facts sort themselves out and take personal time?
Are you married?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to give you great advice. Put this down. And I'm not married, and I've learned, put this down, all right? I'll say this, the question is an important one, and I hope you all heard it. Eyes front, because this is relevant for every one of you. Who here has a smartphone? Who here plays games on their phone? All right, who's on social media? All right, hands down, eyes front. The question was about unplugging. I want you to listen to me. I'll say it once, but I'll mean it a lot. Put down the phone. Give yourself at minimum an hour a day where you say, I'm not going to touch it. If you'll commit, listen, if you'll commit to no phone for an hour, you'll thank me. And it's not because you're going to miss out on anything. You won't. But what it will do is it'll help you connect with each other, with your families, and more importantly, give your brain a break. One of the things we talk about a lot at work is you have to have boundaries. So my goal is when I get home, phone goes in the box. I check it after dinner. If something's that important, I'll get the call, or I'll see it on cable. I can be at the White House in 10 minutes. Soon, 6 minutes, because I'm moving. But my point is, I beg you all, put down the phones. Give up an hour. If you can, give yourself the evening, because there's nothing that important. Honest to goodness, you think about when you're on the phone, most of it's surfing. It's just surfing. So please take that to heart. Thank you for that. Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. Cadet Sanders, Foxtrot Company. How do you manage your personal political views while also being fair and balanced in reporting the news for our country?
It is not easy. The question was, how do you manage your personal political views when you're covering the news? It's not easy. We all have values. We all have perspectives. But for me, the idea is simple. If I share both sides, regardless of story, I'm good. And I've never, ever been told to do it a certain way or write it a certain way, ever. So if you watch any of my stories, whether it's a live shot or a full-blown piece on special report, it's the same every time. Here's what's happening. These are the key players. Here's why you should care. And here's what's happening next. What's the story? Who are the key players? Both sides. Here's why you should care as an American. Both sides. here's what's happening after this, what's coming down the pike. That's what I do. It tends to work. I'm still employed, so I must be doing okay. All right, two more. Two more.
Sir, I have one over here.
Question over here.
Yes, Renee Carroll, Math Department. I told you earlier that your job would be my dream job. I was wondering if you weren't doing journalism, what would be your dream job?
Host of The Price is Right. Come on down. Did you just see it? A new car. Go for the box. Pick the curtain. You know, that's it. Seriously, I think if I weren't doing this, although that would be a hoot. When I leave news, when I leave covering Washington, I'll go back to sports. I did play-by-play for ESPN and for CBS for a while, so I'll probably go back to doing play-by-play football and basketball and baseball and soccer. For me, it's fun because I grew up in a big family, and I had a brother that played college football, another brother that played minor league baseball. I ran track in high school and wrestled and played tennis and football. So I love sports. I'd probably go back to doing it. Unless they call me about Jeopardy. Jeopardy, I would do that too. Yes, sir.
Kevin, who was the person who inspired you the most as a young man and why?
Who inspired me most as a young man and why? A known person or like sort of a figure that I didn't know personally?
It could be either way. Either way.
Okay, of known persons, Father Monaghan. I went to Catholic school, and he was just a bundle of energy every day. His whole mindset, he became Monsignor after that, was if you run hard and you play hard, you'll win. And it doesn't matter what the score is, because if you run hard and play hard, you are a winner. And I always took that to heart. So everything in life I've ever done, I'm kind of a full throttle guy. You know, I don't do anything piecemeal. Ask Lexi, she'll tell you. I'm all in.
It's full speed.
That's a good question. Thanks, buddy. Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. I'm Cadet Drapac from Foxtrot Company. When you worked for SportsCenter, like, who's the most famous athlete you met?
The most famous athlete I've met when I was at SportsCenter? Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Steph Curry, LeBron. Have I shown you that? Okay, I can't show the camera because I don't want it to go out on the internet. Come here, sir. Stop for real quick. Whose phone number is that?
LeBron.
Oh, you stop. So I covered the NBA. I've covered the NFL. I have a few phone numbers in my phone there, which is nice. It's great to know people and to meet lots of tremendous families that are involved in sports. So I've met a few. I have a few phone numbers. But I'd say the best part about my job at SportsCenter was traveling the country and really getting to meet the great young athletes and the tremendous stories that people you never know what people go through until you walk a minute with them side by side. So it was tremendous. I loved it. I'll probably do that again someday. Really fast, before I go, I want to make 2 points, if you'll indulge me. May I? Guys, listen up. I didn't come to preach at you. I came to show my support for you. Now do me the honor in making it count. You're not here by accident. You are at the appointed time and place in your life. Make it count. And lastly, this. No matter where you're from, no matter what your background, no matter how rich, how poor, how smart, we're all one. We may not all be Americans in this room, but we're all citizens of the world. And the Riverside difference is played out every single day because of you. So get out there, make it happen. Thank you for welcoming me to your fantastic facility, this great academy, this wonderful school, and I'm proud of you all. Thanks again, guys.